LC52. It's Mrs. Hernandez, and I hope you had a wonderful 4-day weekend. Today we're going to continue talking about polygons. We've already spent a lot of time talking about a polygon with 3 sides, which are triangles. And today we're going to move on to polygons that have 4 sides, which are all called quadrilaterals. Just like we talked about with triangles, tri represents 3. For quadrilaterals, quad means 4. So all of the polygons that we're going to be talking about today have 4 sides and 4 angles. The first quadrilateral we're going to talk about is a square. The attributes that make a square are that they have 4 right angles. Another way to say that is that all of 4 of their angles are congruent because they are all 90 degrees. They also have 4 equal sides or 4 congruent sides, and opposite sides are parallel. You might remember from 4th grade what parallel means, but parallel is when 2 lines run side by side but will never intersect. So for example, in this square right here, these 2 sides run side by side and they will never intersect. And the other 2 sides that are opposite from each other will also run parallel and never intersect. Make sure you're writing all of this information on your notes that should be inside your notebook. The next quadrilateral we're going to talk about is a rectangle. There are some similarities between a rectangle and a square. They both have 4 right angles or 4 90-degree angles, so all of the angles are equal and congruent. But instead of having 4 equal sides, a rectangle has opposite sides that are equal. And you want to make sure to look for those symbols that tell you that the sides are congruent. So these 2 sides are congruent and these 2 sides are congruent. We can also tell that the angles are 90 degrees or right angles because they each have the right angle symbol. And then also for a rectangle, opposite sides are parallel. Our next quadrilateral that we're going to talk about is the parallelogram. Parallelograms are similar to rectangles. In fact, a rectangle and a square are both types of parallelograms because opposite angles are equal. The same is true of squares and rectangles. Opposite angles are equal because for squares and rectangles, all 4 angles are equal. Opposite sides are equal. So you'll again want to pay attention to those symbols. These 2 sides are equal and these 2 sides are equal. The same is true of squares and rectangles. It's true of a square because all sides are equal, and it's true of a rectangle because these 2 sides are equal and these 2 sides are equal. And then opposite sides are parallel, also attributes of a rectangle and a square. So a parallelogram is only missing the attribute of the 90-degree angle. So you'll see that there are 2 obtuse angles and 2 acute angles making up this parallelogram. But that rectangles and squares are also examples of parallelograms. Okay, our next quadrilateral is the rhombus. A rhombus has opposite angles that are equal, just like a parallelogram. But instead of having just opposite sides that are equal, they have 4 equal sides, so 4 congruent sides. And then opposite sides are parallel. So very similar to a parallelogram, the only additional attribute that a rhombus has is that all 4 sides have to be equal. A square is also an example of a rhombus. It has 4 equal sides, opposite angles are equal, and opposite sides are parallel. A rhombus, though, does not have to have 90-degree angles, and that's what makes a rhombus different than a square. The next quadrilateral we're going to discuss is the trapezoid. A trapezoid is defined as a quadrilateral that has one pair of parallel sides. So if we look at this first trapezoid, which is a traditional looking trapezoid, when we hear the name trapezoid, this is the figure that we often think of. The top and bottom sides are parallel, but the sides over here are not parallel. They would eventually intersect. So it only has one pair of parallel sides. This figure is also a trapezoid because the top and bottom are again parallel, just like in our first trapezoid. But these two sides are not parallel. They would eventually intersect. So this is actually called a right trapezoid because it has 2 right angles. But it's one that people often forget is a trapezoid because it doesn't look like the traditional trapezoid. So you'll want to make sure that when you are deciding if a polygon is a trapezoid, that you're looking to see how many sets of parallel sides there are, and if it only has one set of parallel sides, that would make it a trapezoid. And then the last quadrilateral that we're going to talk about is a kite. The attributes that define a kite are that they have 2 pairs of equal adjacent sides. Adjacent means that the sides share a vertex. So here's a vertex at the top of the figure, at the top of our polygon. These 2 sides are equal or congruent. Here's another vertex here connecting these 2 sides, and these 2 sides are also congruent or equal. The bottom of our notes has information about some polygons with 5, 6, and 8 sides. We're not going to discuss those today. So that's the end of our notes. If these are not already glued into your notebook, you need to be gluing them in as soon as this video finishes. And you can use your notes today to help you with the practice page. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day, and I will look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Bye.